This is We Are Venomaniacs, the Venom site's official podcast for all your symbiote news, reviews, and point of views. Welcome to our very first episode. Bag and board it while it's fresh. In this brand new series of the Venom site's first official podcast, a few of the fan club's esteemed and brave members take to the airwaves to discuss symbiote-related comics, movies, cartoons, games, and more. We also provide new updates on fresh media and merch, all of course about symbiotes, all the time. Every so often we will go deep into the canon and mythology of symbiotes in comics. Have you ever wondered why symbiotes are weak against fire and sonics? Or how all of the seemingly conflicting interpretations of symbiote culture or history all fit together? What was up with Croba, am I right? We'll get to all of that and more in due time. For now, let us get you up to speed. What is the Venom site? The Venom site, or TVS as you'll sometimes hear us call it, is the internet's premier and officially recognized fan club for all things symbiotes. If you like Venom, Carnage, or any of the other countless symbiote characters, the Venom site is your central hub to connect and geek out with fellow fans and get the latest news on symbiote merch and media. What is a Venomaniac? You are if you like anything symbiote. Venomaniac is a fan-made nickname for symbiote fans, originating straight from the Venom site's own community. So, who are we? Let's introduce your esteemed podcast hosts. First up, we have Carlos, Twitter handle BlackVaneF50. Say hello and a few interesting facts about yourself, Carlos. Say, how long have you been with TBS? How are you?
I'm pretty much been with TBS since when the Agent Venom series started.
So that was probably like about 5 years ago?
Yeah, probably about 5 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. Alright, and then how were you introduced to Venom and symbiotes?
I think it all started when the original Spider-Man cartoons in the 90s started, when I was young.
That's good.
And then when I first saw Venom on TV, I was pretty much hooked from that point on.
Alright, sweet. And then who is your favorite symbiote or host?
Obviously, if I had to pick one, it would probably be Eddie Brock, of course, and then second would be Flash.
Alright. And what is your favorite symbiote comic story arc?
I think it would have to be Maximum Carnage.
Oh, that's a good choice. Always a classic.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
If you could bond to any symbiote in the Marvel Universe, which would it be?
Obviously Venom. No other.
Ah, that's perfect. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be pretty much everyone's choice. Everyone loves Venom, you know.
Yep.
That's why we call ourselves Venomaniacs.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much, Carlos. Welcome to the podcast. Next up,
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Next up, we have John, Twitter handled Agent JC Harris. Same questions for you. How long have you been with the TVS?
I'd say for the past about 3 years. I started when Agent Venom's original run ended, and I needed to find out what other comics he was showing up in, so the TVS really helped me with that.
And that's what we're here for, definitely. And how were you introduced to Venom and symbiotes?
Well, just like Carlos, I was introduced to Venom by the 90s Amazing Spider-Man cartoon. In fact, I didn't read comics at all at the time. I loved Spider-Man, and I loved his villains, so of course I instantly fell in love with evil Spider-Man. After that, Venom became my favorite villain, and I would play any game that had anything to do with him. Specifically, I played Marvel vs. Capcom for hours just so I could play as Venom and Spider-Man.
That's good. And who is your favorite symbiote and host?
If you don't mind me going on a bit of a tangent, my favorite host is Flash Thompson. 4 years ago, I picked up my first comic, which was Volume 1 of Rick Remender's Venom. At first, I thought it was the coolest thing that Venom had his own comic, and I bought it thinking it was Eddie Brock. When I found out it was Flash Thompson of all people, I was sure it was an alternate universe. I read it and instantly fell in love with Flash Thompson as Venom. It wasn't until later, when I did some research on it and found out it was actually canon that he was Venom in the 616 universe. So Flash Thompson has been my favorite host ever since.
Perfect. And what is your favorite symbiote comic or story arc?
My favorite symbiote story arc is the Savage 6 arc of Agent Venom's run. My father bought me all 6 issues for my 18th birthday, and it's been my favorite ever since. It's got some real sentimental value to me because it's what got me into collecting comic books.
That's good. That's a really good story arc, too. Love the Savage 6.
Yeah.
And if you could bond to any symbiote in the Marvel Universe, which would it be?
This is kind of a cop-out answer, but I would bond with a freshly hatched symbiote straight from the planet Clintar. That way, we could be heroes without the baggage of evil memories or previous hosts.
That's a good choice. All right, well, thank you very much, John.
No problem.
So welcome to the podcast. And as for myself, my name is Orion. Yes, very much like the constellation. My Twitter handle is @OrionStarboy. In fact, I'm Orion Starboy pretty much anywhere else. I will be your main host for the most, if not all, of the podcast. I'll go ahead and answer the same questions. I've been with the Venom site ever since the first issue of the 2012 Venom series came out, the one starring Flash Thompson. And I might have been around a bit earlier than that. I can't really say. But maybe it was around the time when he first debuted in Amazing Spider-Man 654 and 654.1, the backup stories. But yeah, that's how I was introduced to the Venom site. And then I was introduced to Venom and symbiotes, pretty much like everyone else said, in the 90s Spider-Man animated series. I took liking to Spider-Man's black suit at first, and then I took a liking to Venom in the cartoon. In fact, those episodes are still my favorite cartoon versions of Venom and symbiotes. My favorite symbiote is, of course, Venom. My favorite host is Eddie Brock, but I actually prefer Eddie as Anti-Venom over Venom, because I just believe that Anti-Venom was the best version of Eddie. My favorite symbiote comic and story arc is a toss-up between the classic Venom Lethal Protector and Anti-Venom New Ways to Live. Both represent some of the best interpretations of Eddie's characterization as an anti-hero. And if I could bond with any symbiote in the Marvel Universe, it would have to be the Anti-Venom foe symbiote. It's not actually a symbiote, but, its weaknesses and drawbacks are honestly more preferable to that of a regular symbiote. Plus, I wouldn't have to fight for control since that symbiote doesn't have a consciousness as other symbiotes do. So that's us. Carlos, John, and Orion. We are Venomaniacs. Get it? Got it? Good. Alright, let's start things off with a general discussion about the end of the last Venom comic book series, Venom Space Knight, and the official end to Spider-Man bully turned war hero Flash Thompson's 5-year run as Agent Venom. By the way, spoilers ahead. This is your first and only spoiler warning, people. We will be spoiling secrets and plot points to Venom Space Knight and the first issue of the new Marvel Now Venom series. Ready? Okay, here we go. Up until the first issue of the new Venom series, Flash Thompson was the host of a more heroic version of Venom. For those who are unaware, Flash Thompson was a bully to Peter Parker, but ironically a super Spider-Man fan. Later in life, Peter and Flash became best of friends, and Flash had shipped off to the U.S. Marine Corps to the Middle East to serve his country. Eventually, Flash returned a wounded war hero after having lost his legs. Some time later, Flash took an opportunity to serve his country again by enlisting a top-secret super soldier program, Project Rebirth 2.0, where he was bonded to the Venom symbiote to become Agent Venom, a Black Ops super soldier and spy. Over time, Flash left Project Rebirth 2.0 and eventually joined the Secret Avengers, the Thunderbolts, and the Guardians of the Galaxy. All the while, Flash had struggled against this symbiote's violent and corrupting nature until he visited the symbiote homeworld, Clintar, where the symbiote was cleansed of its corruption. That allowed the symbiote and Flash to become Venom agent of the cosmos, a sort of space knight, which led into the last series, Venom Space Knight. This series saw Venom on a solo adventure through a space apart from the Guardians of the Galaxy. In the series, Flash formed his own team of alien warriors, and he was sent from planet to planet, freeing other aliens from a tyrannical warlord named Mercurio. Toward the end of the series, Flash returned to Earth to settle unfinished business in Philadelphia, his previous stomping ground. Around the time Flash's first Venom series ended in 2013, he had a teenage symbiote sidekick named Andrea Andy Benton, aka Mania. The Mania symbiote was originally a clone of the Venom symbiote that had been expelled from the main symbiote host. When the Mania symbiote was separated from Venom, it took with it a Hell mark, a symbol that represented an heir to the throne of Hell. Agent Venom had gotten the Hell mark in its early adventures in Las Vegas, but when it transferred to Mania, she became the next heir of Hell, and she also became possessed by a demon. Flash had returned to Earth when he and the symbiote sensed Mania in pain from the possession. In the end, he managed to temporarily quell the demon within her, and two of them swung off into the sunset. Carlos, let's have you start us off with a brief review of Venom Space Knight and your overall reaction to Flash Thompson's run as Venom. So, let's first start off with, what was your reaction to the series ending?
Personally, I wasn't really that surprised. Maybe just due to the whole fact that I think the sales weren't doing too well, and Marvel was now jumping into the whole Marvel Now promotion that's going on right now. But I'm kind of somewhat satisfied how it ended, because at first when it first started, like, I wasn't really on board with it, and at the time I wasn't really digging the whole the new look for Agent Venom when he was out in space with the Guardians of the Galaxy. But over time, I kind of it grew on me, and I actually started liking it, and I ended up picking up the series. So yeah.
Good. And what did you like most about his run as Venom?
Overall, Flash, for me, he's really progressed as a character, having to deal with alcohol abuse, an abusive father relationship, and him overcoming his own personal demons. And as seeing him grow, I think there's a lot more to Flash's history than we know. I think that I wish he was still Venom, but we just have to wait and see what they have planned for this new series. So I'm down for whatever Marvel has to throw at us at this point. Very
good. And what unfinished plot threads were you hoping to see wrapped up before his run as Venom was over?
I think the only thing that they need to take care of is the Hell mark with Mania and with Andy. I think I really would like to see that put to rest and see where they go from there. Other than that, I think that's just the only thing that's the only plot hole I think they should take care of at this point.
Pretty good choice there. I mean, we all want that to be over.
Yeah.
And so, what was your favorite Agent Venom moment from the past 5 years?
I think my favorite so far would have to be when he met up with Kane, the Scarlet Spider, or Kane Parker, when they fought with Carnage and Minimum Carnage. If I'm not mistaken, if that is his name. If that's not his name, I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But yeah, I think that's my favorite moment, when he met up with Scarlet Spider and Minimum Carnage, pretty much.
That was a pretty cool meetup, definitely.
Yeah.
So what are your hopes for Flash post Venom?
I mean, as I was on Twitter, people were saying, and I think Flash should probably, if he's not going to be Venom anymore, I think he should probably be with the Guardians of the Galaxy as part of the team. Because I don't know what other point he would have if he were to stay in Philadelphia, help, if he's going to help Mania, Andy, or he goes back to New York to check on Peter. But I don't know. I think he would. I don't know. I think he should probably go back to the Guardians for a while. If he's not going to be used as Venom for the future or anything like that. But
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah,
I mean, with with Guardians of the Galaxy, it wasn't really that great of an adventure for Agent Venom, but I could always see
yeah,
Flash going back and just even as himself, he could probably be a good Guardian.
yeah, exactly.
All right, well, thank you very much, Carlos and John. What was your reaction to the series ending?
I was disappointed. I wasn't surprised. The sales weren't all that high. It wasn't doing all that well. But I thought I was disappointed because there was a lot of untapped potential with Venom in space that they didn't really get to explore.
All right, and what did you like most about Flash Thompson's run as Venom?
Everything. Being that he was my favorite character, there were no moments where I was disappointed with him being in a comic or having his own. I thought he was handled well. I thought his character growth was fantastic.
Even in the Thunderbolts?
Okay, let's not talk about Thunderbolts. Yes, there were some awful team moments. I'd say Guardians even was annoying to read just because he didn't have very much panel space.
It has its
But
moments, but yeah, overall.
right, right. Flash never got any time to shine on those teams like he did with Secret Avengers. I'd say he had a lot more to do with that. But yes, I'd say my I guess that's my favorite moment. So I'll save that for later. Sorry.
Alrighty. And what unfinished plot threads were you hoping to see wrapped up before his run as Venom was over?
I know this is the obvious answer, but I really, really want them to make some sort of miniseries with Mania, and Flash as a mentor,
Yes, thank
and
you.
just wrap that up finally.
Oh yes,
Just wrap it up, and it needs to be Mania and Flash, whether he has a symbiote or not. He needs to be part of it. He needs to be there for her whenever she inevitably fights this back.
And toss in a little bit of Eddie Brock in there just for the drama.
Just for some fun. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Hey,
Alrighty.
we've got Demon Carnage waiting on the back lines too. He could be part of it as well.
Yes, yes. All right, and what was your favorite Agent Venom moment from the past 5 years?
There are so many, but I think as an Eddie Brock fan and a Flash Thompson fan, the biggest highlight was when he was in Philadelphia and the Toxin with a Vengeance storyline, where Eddie Brock was watching over him. They made a deal that Eddie was going to watch over him and make sure he didn't lose control. And I thought that was the coolest thing, having Flash as a gym teacher, trying to control Venom, and having old Venom, even more powerful than before, watching over him. I thought that was the biggest and coolest thing that just never went anywhere, unfortunately.
I know. All right, and then what are your hopes for Flash post-Venom?
There's a lot of things I have in mind. I want him to, first and foremost, continue to be relevant in the Marvel Universe. I think at this point he's made a name for himself with 3 different teams. Captain America knows him personally. I think it would be a huge waste to just sweep him under the rug. So I want him to be either on a team or be part of, like I said, Mania's comic or any future symbiote comics. I think he should play a big role just like Eddie has. I want him to become Venom again, but if that can't happen, I would like him to have the hybrid symbiote, because it's just sitting there on a dog and nothing's being done with it. So it's a huge waste of hybrid, and it's a huge waste of Flash if they don't do something with them,
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'd say that's my biggest hope, is that he continues to be a hero, he continues to be relevant, and perhaps continues to be a symbiotic hero, even.
That's a very good answer. Thank you very much, John.
No problem.
As for me, I was a bit indifferent with the end of Space Knight, honestly. As both Carlos and John know, and anyone on Twitter who follows me, I didn't really care much for Agent Venom's space adventures overall. In fact, it wasn't until the last half of Space Knight that his role in space started to grow on me. I'll always prefer Agent Venom as a street-level hero who belongs in Philly. Those were his prime days for me because he was being Philly's lethal protector, if Eddie Brock wasn't already one. As such, I still liked that Robbie Thompson and company revisited Cullen Bunn's loose plot thread of the descent with Mania and her Hellmark. But I'm disappointed that we might not see a conclusion to that story with Flash as Agent Venom. It felt to me like Robbie didn't advance the story any further than where it was when Cullen left it. Yeah, I was disappointed that he didn't have enough time to continue from there before Marvel switched gears in the new Venom series, but, I just hope that, like both you and both John and Carlos have said, that this continues some time soon outside of the current Venom series, or maybe even within, if that is at all possible. What I really liked about Flash's run as Venom was all the lore building we got for symbiotes. We got so much new lore, guys. From the history of the symbiotes in the microverse from Minimum Carnage, to the introduction of the proper symbiote homeworld, and the idea that there are two different symbiote cultures, the virtuous agents of the cosmos / space knights, and the corrupted culture which we were solely exposed to as readers before Brian Bendis wrote Planet of the Symbiotes in Guardians of the Galaxy. It excites me because it opens up a plethora of new opportunities for future stories, and I hope that Mike Costa, the writer of the new Venom series, touches base on some of the new lore at some point. And what I'm really going to miss, in reference to the unfinished plot threads, are the spawning event and Cal Henriksen. The spawning was an idea that Rick Remender was floating around when he made Eddie Brock the new Toxin, or Broxon as we like to call him around the web, during the Savage 6 storyline. I'm still curious to know where he was going with that one, because it obviously sounds like it's something that's central to symbiote lore, and it's like a potential huge crossover event with a bunch of different comics. Just a symbiote invasion would be fantastic. And then as for Cal Henriksen, that was another loose plot thread that Rick had only briefly mentioned in one of the first issues of Agent Venom's first series. The idea that between Mac Gargan and Flash, there was a host that named Cal Henriksen, who was Project Rebirth's and Agent Venom prototype. To me, that's huge. I mean, I want to know more about this original Agent Venom, who he was and what happened to him, It's just a fantastic little loose plot thread, just a little seed there. My favorite Agent Venom moment has to be his last fight with Roxxon. The two big hosts of the Venom symbiote squaring off, with the former host trying to stop the current host from turning into the monster that Eddie had become as Venom. That was just... I love that. It was almost like Eddie was fighting a younger version of himself. A host who believed he was doing good, but would one day become consumed by the symbiote's corruption. And I really hope that we get to see Flash in the new Venom series. I hope that he shows up to explain to whoever he's teaming up with to fight the new Venom, which might be Eddie Brock or Mac Gargan or whoever they plan on bringing in to fight the new Venom. I hope he just shows up to explain what happened between the end of Space Knight and the beginning of Venom, just to give us an idea of, why is the symbiote no longer bonded to him. Something happened. And I also hope that he reconnects with his alien crew from Space Knight and returns to space with them, because even without a symbiote, I'd read a comic with his cosmic adventures with them. He doesn't need to have a symbiote to be a hero anymore. He's a hero all in himself. Let's move on to our review of the first issue of the new Venom series. But before we begin, let's talk about our expectations and predictions we had before we even read the new issue. So again, we'll start with Carlos. When you first heard about Space Knight ending, and a series reboot starring a new Venom host, and a return to a villainous formula, what was your reaction?
My reaction pretty much I was kind of shocked at first, and when I realized it wasn't going to be Flash, I was kind of a little let down. And I was like wondering who are they going to pick to replace Flash, and then I realized too he was going to become bad again, and I'm like, well, who could make Venom bad, and and that's why I was kind of speculating who could it be. I didn't want Matt Gargan because,
Well,
and then
who did you
yeah.
want the new Venom host to be, or who do you think it would have been?
Well, I was on Twitter and people were giving rumors and speculation it was going to be the Hobgoblin, who is the Hobgoblin right now again?
It was Phil Urich.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be Phil, because there were we had screen caps from Twitter, all the signs were pointing to him, but it wasn't him, and it was going to be completely someone new that we've never heard of, and yeah, that's pretty much my reaction.
Well, but who did you also want to be the Venom host?
Oh, who I wanted to be the Venom host? Honestly, I wanted to have been Eddie again, but with Carnage still not ended, we still really didn't have an idea. But if I had to pick one, it'd be Eddie.
That's good. That's good. And John, when you first heard about the ending and the reboot and the whole return to villainous formula, what was your reaction?
I was extremely depressed. I was very bummed. I was on a family vacation when I got the news, and everyone. If I weren't having such fun with my family, I would have been moping around all day. That's for sure. But as time went on, I was more accepting of it. I knew it was inevitable that Flash couldn't be Venom forever. It's just the nature of the character, and so I moved on. And I hope to have a good host.
Very good. And who did you want to be the new Venom host, or who did you think it would be?
Well, honestly, at first I was really gunning for Andrea Benton. I thought if she couldn't be Mania, then she would make a fantastic Venom. But I would prefer her to stay Mania, of course. But with the whole end of Space Knight, I thought for sure that she couldn't be Mania anymore. They did a good job of giving that back to her. Other than that, I would hope that they made a new original character that I actually liked.
And then they did, and
they made a new original character, and here we are.
Yeah, here we are. All right, well, thank you. And as for me, I felt some relief, when I heard about the new series ending. I also understood the need for a change. I mean, there is a need for a change. I've said it before online that I felt like Flash's tenure as Venom was coming to a close. Even as the first Venom series ended, it felt like it was going downhill for a little while, and as soon as he got into space, it was like it was dragging on for me. He couldn't be Venom forever, and the pendulum for Venom swings from heroic to villainous. And it was already swinging back towards the villainous side. I mean, you look at the end of near the end of Space Knight, the symbiote was already becoming a little more corrupted, even though it was trying hard not to. But it was starting to go back towards that villainous side. And then, as soon as I heard about Venom would be getting a new host, I immediately wanted Andy, Mania's host, to be the new Venom, just like Carlos and John said. This was around the time when Mania was returning to Space Knight, so I already had predicted, she was going to be the new Venom. It made sense to me, Marvel's in the business of reinventing their legacy characters right now to include women and minorities in these big roles. Also, the original one of the original creators of Venom, David Michelinie, he's the writer who originally co-created Venom. He originally conceived Venom as a woman before Marvel editorial had him change Venom to be a man, and thus you got Eddie Brock. So why not let Andy fulfill that role all these years later? Okay, and now we get to the big part. Here we go, guys. let's review Venom number 1. Let's get the major spoiler out of the way right now, just so everyone's not in anticipation anymore. Venom's new host is an all-new character named Lee Price. He's a wounded soldier like Flash Thompson, but corrupt and evil like Gargan, and probably even worse. We'll ditch the Q&A format we've been using before, right? And just discuss our opinions and analyses as they come. So Carlos, do you want to start us out?
Yep. Pretty much, like, I honestly don't have any relation to this Lee Price character. I mean, it's just the fact that, what really bugs me, first off, is, like, I know they're not going to explain the first issue, but the fact that how Venom's just wandering in the alleyways and he's been abandoned by Flash, and to me, I was kind of confused. I'm like, well, what the hell happened? What tore them apart? What made them say, okay, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm just going to do my own thing. I mean, there has to be a reason. And I really would have liked this issue personally to be a double thicker issue, but again, the cost would have been up and stuff like that. But again, like, I'm not really liking Lee Price as a character, and his reasons for doing these evil acts with the Venom symbiote, because he had a very troubled childhood and all that. And I mean, don't get me wrong, the only positive thing I can say so far, I do like the new look for Venom, as he is now. I actually do really like. Costa, his writing is really good. The pacing is decent, I would have to say. Gerardo's art in this is actually really well drawn and colored and all that. But again, I'm not dropping the issue. Obviously, I'm going to be sticking around, see what they have to show off. And I mean, at the end, they did say they have big plans for Flash, so we have to wait and see till then. But in terms of the new host, I'm not really impressed.
And how about you, John? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with everything Carlos said. The new host is probably the worst case scenario, in my opinion. They took everything that was bad about Mac Gargan and turned it up to 10.
And then they tried to mimic Flash Thompson to say, hey, it's not so bad.
Right, like, his origin story isn't even original. He had abusive parents just like Flash Thompson, but instead of turning to bullying, he just straight up killed people and joined the army so he could be paid for it. He's just a despicable character. They did nothing to give him any redeemable qualities. When he was a child and his mom got killed in a building fire, his reaction was that he would have done it years ago and he wouldn't have gotten caught. I think that line alone is setting this character up as an unsympathetic character that you just can't like. He kills a childhood friend without a second thought for a really dumb reason too. I have this strange symbiote. I have to kill you now. Like, where's the reasoning there? And then he killed a hobo for the very same really lame reason.
That really...
Yeah, I hated that. I really, like, that, again, that really just didn't make sense to me. Like, how you just, like, killed these people for no reason.
And,
I hated that.
Yeah, and the whole killing the hobo part, I'm like... Even Costa and whoever, they all said, this is a love letter to Venom fans, and we're going to be including attributes of Flash and Gargan and Brock. And when you look at him killing the hobo, I'm like, oh my god, he's the anti-Brock. Brock would never kill the hobos because he was one of them, and he values the innocence. And that hobo wasn't innocent. It was like, it was just terrible.
Yeah, he said it was a love letter to Venom fans. I did not get that at all with this first issue.
Yeah.
At all.
Same here. It's just, it's kind of very, very not really lackluster in any way. So, very lackluster. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd like to touch on John's point there about Costa setting Lee up as a very unsympathetic character. And that's one of my fundamental issues with this new book, and probably with the new series if this whole trend continues, is that Lee is unsympathetic, and that just does not work. And especially doesn't work when Costa is trying to set up the Venom symbiote itself as a co-lead character and as the sympathetic character, because a lot of people were throwing around the word rape. I mean, in relation to what Lee did to the symbiote. And when you look at it, I mean, it's not a sexual rape, but it's a very domineering, very very controlling type of personality against this poor symbiote who the symbiote seems to be in a very bad state right now, in between hosts. It's desperate to find a host to survive, and it thinks it found someone who is like Flash, but turns out is like the anti-Flash, anti-Brock, and Gargan to the max. And so that the whole thing about making the symbiote the sympathetic character, making it the co-lead, as much as I love to say, you know, make the symbiote a character, make the symbiote something I would want to read about, you know, their story, I'm gonna really contradict myself here and say, actually doing that to make the symbiote the co-lead, it doesn't work for me. It really doesn't work, because historically, we look back at almost 30 years of Venom comics history, of symbiote comics and all that. And what do you see? You see symbiotes bonding to human and sometimes non-human hosts, but that's very brief. But all these human hosts, these are the people that we're reading the books for. We're not reading the books because they have the symbiotes. We're reading the books because we want to see how they react to having the symbiotes. For example, you know, Spider-Man. Does anybody read his original appearances with the symbiote because, oh my gosh, it's the symbiote, we want to know all about the symbiote? No, we're reading to see, you know, it's this outside force trying to take over Spider-Man, and Spider-Man at the same time resisting that force and trying to use that force, even though he didn't know at the time that it was an alien. He wanted to use his new powers from the symbiote to do good, and that's just a constant in the Venom mythos, is that the symbiote was created as an accessory to the main character of the host, and that it plays as the an alien antagonistic force that has the allure of power. And trying to make that antagonistic force that's allure of power, that has the allure of power, the main character of the story, it's like you're making a handbag or you know, name an accessory that is like not really something you'd focus on, but it brings value to a character. Name something like that and say, let's wrap a story around that. It really doesn't work too well, because you can't sympathize with an accessory, even if it has a consciousness or opinions of its own or anything. It's alien to us because we connect best with the human hosts of the character of the symbiotes, you know.
Right. I think like in summary, you could say you can make the symbiote as human as you want it to be, but we can't relate to it. We have to relate to the human character using it, no matter what happens. And the human character that they gave us was just completely unrelatable. As far as like his morals, his like, come on, the dude didn't even like his own mother. Who relates to that? So it's this. We're in this odd spot where the only character that you like in this comic is the symbiote itself, which is a very strange and interesting take, but it's not going to carry the comic at all.
But the thing is too is like also what I noticed in the issues, like the Venom symbiote seems to be suffering. It seems to be very unhappy, or it feels abandoned in some sort of sense. Because at the last panel, he just leaves it there on the floor, and it looks like it's in agonizing pain or something. And it's like, you know.
Right, it's like trying to
Yeah.
get away from him. How is that supposed to make Venom fans feel good?
And especially when you look at like some preview art for the next issue was released recently, and one of the pages just struck me as this is not going to go well. Is that we see Lee Pace, Lee Price, and Venom, the symbiote. They're discussing with each other. We don't know what they're saying because there's no words yet. But we see them having a heated discussion. The symbiote is obviously angry with Price, and he's not even gonna take it. He's just he has a solid expression like he doesn't really care. And then all of a sudden, it's these really small panels you can barely see, but Price picks up a folding chair and just smacks Venom upside the head with it. Like,
What the heck, man?
yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah, it's like,
that's
this is
awful.
abuse. This is abuse.
yeah, it's not a feel-good comic at all.
No.
It's very terrible. Like, how is that supposed to make readers like the main character of your comic book?
You know, I really won't be surprised by the next issue, and then issue 3, if this is going to be a repeating cycle where Lee Price is just going to go on a killing rampage, doing whatever he wants, and there's pretty much no one to stop him other than Scorpion, Matt Gargan coming in, you know, because there was another cover of them fighting it out, which I'm pretty sure they're going to eventually fight, I'm guessing. But if that's going to happen, then it's going to be like, well, yeah, this is not really enjoyable to read if this is how it's going to go, you know, for the next couple of issues. So
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I don't think it would have been so bad if Lee was a character we could love to hate, but I don't think anyone would love to hate this guy. This guy is despicable.
Right. Right. If you're making a villain, there has to be some kind of sympathy there, or or there's no cheering for him at all.
Yeah, I mean, that was my whole point. You know, it's just making the symbiote the character we sympathize with. It doesn't work if the host is a complete dick towards the symbiote. And you know, the symbiote may be the exotic factor to Venom's legacy, that wow factor that just draws the reader in, but it's the host that keeps us reading.
Right. Agreed. That they made a huge deal about the new host. Like, that's what they were marketing. Is that it's a new Venom.
You would never, you won't believe who the new host is. Well, we don't believe what he's doing to the poor symbiote.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And I think the vast majority of people are completely agreeing that this isn't a comic book that they're willing to put up with, or this isn't a character that they're willing to put up with.
And you know, it's sad too, because when it was like in an interview recently that Costa was talking about, oh, he has plans, you know, up until the 30th anniversary of Venom, and that's in 2018. And it's like, oh my god, you have all these plans and everything, but the book is not going to survive as it is right now because we can't connect with the character.
Right, it's not going to sell until, like, unless Eddie and Flash get really involved in the story, then readers like us and others will be interested in it, but will it be enough to really save it? I don't know.
And the thing too is, like, I really hope they, like, John, I think you'll agree with me on this one. Like, I hope that, you know, at the end of Space Knight, okay, everyone wants media to come back, and now we have the new Venom issue that just came out. I really hope they just don't sweep her under the rug again, because I'm going to be really annoyed if they do that.
Oh yeah.
Because I think, okay, because right now we already have Spider-Gwen, we already got Silk, and Gwenpool, which is a thing now apparently. So why not have her in at least a miniseries, and, you know, have her own time to shine, you know. But if she's not going to be in this in any way, and then they're not going to finally fix the whole Hellmark issue or whatever, I don't know. It's just going to be a little annoying for me, to be honest. So
Right, I agree. I think going back, if I can bring her into the comic, I think it would be a fantastic idea if Flash chooses to hunt down the new Venom, and he has Mania as his top gun. You know, Mania is his like right hand girl who does all the fighting for him because he can't do anything at this point. I think that would be super cool and would be a good way to get her involved. But that's just me.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree with you guys. I mean, but the thing is that we the book cannot be carried the book
By side characters.
by side characters. I mean, Carnage is doing a fantastic job because the current Carnage series, it doesn't entirely focus on Carnage as the main character. He's been set up as this force that another group of characters are chasing after, and we're getting we really care about those other characters more than we do about Carnage, which is great. But that's because that series was set up in that way, where Carnage was not the main character. In this series, we have Lee Price and Venom as the main characters. And we can't care for Lee Price, and having the symbiote as the main character doesn't work. And therefore, even if the other characters coming in were saving grace for this thing, the series can't be carried by that.
Right. There's a lot of parallels that can be made to the Carnage series. I'd say if you look at the Carnage series, that's how you do a villain comic right. And if you look at Venom #1, that's how you do it wrong.
Yeah.
The Carnage series, the #1 issue, introduces the hero team going after Carnage, and it spends most of the comic doing so. Eddie Brock's in the first. He's in the first issue. All the heroes are introduced, and of course they have the advantage because we don't need to be introduced to Carnage. But it doesn't seem like they're about to introduce the hero team in Venom issue #2 either, is my concern.
Yeah, and that's another thing there. Another good point we brought up is that with the Carnage series, we didn't need any introductions to Carnage because we have the entire history of knowing who Carnage is. And yeah, I mean, he has the fault of being pretty two-dimensional as a character. But that's
So is
okay.
Lee Price now.
Yeah, Lee Price is now a two-dimensional character, but he doesn't work as a main character because he's just like Carnage, where Carnage really doesn't work as a main character either. That's why this new series, this new Carnage series, is working so well, is because he's not the main character. And
Right.
and we already know so much about Carnage that we just take it on stride that yes, this is a Carnage series, and we know all about Carnage, but we're learning about this new team with some of these characters we've known for years. But
and now
bring them all
we're
together. Yeah.
we're getting Rays as well that just got introduced into the whole thing.
Yeah, so we know all about the Carnage character from the previous comics and everything, but this Lee Price character, the reason he's not working is because we know absolutely nothing about him, and having him and establishing him as the lead character in the Venom series without having anything to back it up with, we're establishing him from the get-go. It's like it's not working. Even
Right.
Carnage, when he was first introduced in the pages of Amazing Spider-Man, he was not a main character.
Right. And I think we need to address the fact, so people don't get angry at us. We understand that this is the first issue, and we understand that they still have time to develop the character. But as a first issue, as an issue #1, they did nothing to make us enjoy this character at all.
Yes.
And that's the problem we have. It's not the fact that they can't in the future, but a #1 issue is very important, and
Yes.
they dropped the ball very badly.
I mean, like a few days ago, John had posted onto Twitter a bunch of sales information about the various Venom comic series, and even looking from that, that's pretty much indicative of the entire comic book industry. Is that the first few issues are very important because they have the highest sales numbers before they drop. And
Right.
unfortunately, this new Venom series had probably fantastic sales, but it's gonna drop really hard, really fast, because of the way this was set up, and because just reading the series, you can see there's a lot of telling of what's probably going to happen with the characters. I mean, we already see from the previews of the second issue that this abuse that Lee is having against the symbiote, it's just going to continue. It's probably going to get exacerbated, and it's just going to get worse. And it's like,
And then, because when it comes down to it, the first issue has to impress you. It just has to impress you on the first time you read it. But,
it gave us an impression.
Yeah, but again, like I understand people will either like it, they'll like the character, or like for us three, we're not really as much impressed as we would have wanted to be. But
And then imagine if we were new readers. Imagine if we've never read a Venom comic before. This is a starting point for them, and they're introduced to this.
Right. If I can go back to my story of how I picked up Remender's Volume 1 of the Venom series, I thought full well that this was going to be Eddie Brock. When I found out it wasn't, they still gave me a fantastic character in Flash Thompson. They built him up as a character that you can sympathize with. If this was the comic that I picked up 4 years ago, I would be in a very different place. I would not have continued to collect it at all. I would have been angry, and I would have been screaming for Eddie to come back. Because this series, like, I can't even imagine reading this being the first comic I ever read. I would be so disgusted.
Yes, definitely.
And that's terrible. Like, that's not good for new readers. I'm sure there's a lot of readers out there who like the character, but I mean, there's some people who like Matt Gargan too. So you're just in the minority, I'd say.
I think, as I've stated on Twitter, congratulations, Matt Gargan. You are no longer the worst Venom in history. And even then, when you compare Lee Price to Matt Gargan, it's almost black and white. It's almost black and white because Matt Gargan, he's a sleazebag, yes, but he's not like Lee Price. He's not abusive. He's not, he's not unstable like Lee Price is. It's just,
oh man.
And I will give them credit that they actually left that detail of the stitch marks that he got, because I remember when Octavius took over Peter's body at the end of issue 700, and he actually used the full force of his punching ability and just ripped his jaw clean off.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Crazy. It's crazy that I'm glad that they put in those details.
Yeah.
All right, so I think that's a good place to really put a pin on that. Maybe for a future podcast, we'll pick up maybe a few issues out. We'll start another podcast, but let's each of us give our listeners a 1 to 5 stars. What did you think about this issue?
For me, I'm probably gonna have to give it. I'll give it a 3 out of 5 just because of the art. I'll be fair, but in terms of the characters of Lee and the story and how this is already starting off, no, I can't really give it a 4 or 5 at this point. So.
And John?
Right. In quick summary, I'd just like to say I know we've been trash talking the comic this whole time, but the art, I'm a huge fan of Sandoval. I think he's done a fantastic job. I think all of the characters look great, even if Lee looks like a generic anime hero or villain. I'm sorry.
Yes. As one of our other Venomaniac friends on Twitter has said, he's the total edgelord.
He is a total edgelord. But regardless of that, I think the art is really well done. I think Venom's new design is cool. I don't like a forked tongue, but that's just a nitpick, personally. And I thought that the writing was really cleverly done, with Venom's speech bubble showing up during Lee Price's moments in the comic. I thought that was really well done. But the main character is what makes a comic. And unfortunately, this is the worst case scenario for me personally. And I'd have to give it, I'd say I'm going to be generous and say 2.5. I was going to say 2, but I'll say 2.5. I'll give it a solid 50. Only because I really like Sandoval and I thought the writing was well done. It's just the main character is generic. He's very shallow. There doesn't seem to be much going on. And I was disgusted by him. So it really brought in some negative emotions in me, which a comic shouldn't do.
Yes. And as for me, judging on the art is fantastic, as you have both said. For that, I'll give a separate review of probably 4 stars. Very good. And for the writing itself, barring the story, the writing itself is pretty good. So I'll give that probably 4 stars too. I liked it. But when it comes to the overall comic and the story and everything, that's definitely 2-star.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
And so, that just about wraps things up. Thank you very much, Carlos and John, for joining me in our first podcast.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, I was happy to be here.
And thank you very much, our honorable host, Jason, the Venom Site himself, for permitting us to make this podcast under the TVS banner, and for all of his generous support. And then finally, thank you very much to loyal listeners and fellow Venomaniacs. You guys make an awesome community, and it's an honor to be your voice on the airwaves. Together, we are Venomaniacs. And, quick note, look forward to seeing news about a symbiotic holiday giveaway sometime in the coming weeks on the Venom site and its Reddit page. Both Jason and I held a similar giveaway back in 2014. Back then, the lucky winner of the giveaway won a Marvel Legends Agent Venom action figure and a special one-of-a-kind Agent Venom sketch card illustration drawn and colored by me. This year, you can look forward to some jumbo prizes, see if you caught the hint. And again, look forward to more news about the 2016 Symbiote Holiday Giveaway in the coming weeks on both the Venom site's main page and the Reddit page. With that, we at the We Are Venomaniacs podcast thank you all for tuning in to our debut episode. Hopefully we can do this again in the new year. But for now, Orion signing off.
Carlos signing off.
John signing off.
Happy holidays, Venomaniacs.
Happy holidays.